going to the gym. But before that, part 2 of this panel is going to come up. So go check that out. Yay! Well said. Well said. And question number 5. And let me tell you, my brother Chip, we were yelling at each other about this over Canes like a few hours ago, and I really just want to get your take on this. How long, or wait, let me rephrase that. How long is too long to date, or how short is too short to date, like as a precursor to marriage? And oh my gosh, it was such a rough conversation with Chip and I. Basically what he was trying to explain to me was that I'm sure like you and pretty much everyone who does not live under a rock and has a human body knows that like the longer you start spending like serious time together with another person in the context of a romantic relationship, like Sammy, as you said earlier, the more you're going to start to want to be physically intimate with someone and want to have sex with them. So his take was that you should date for at least a year and a half before you start seriously considering marriage. But for at least me personally, I would really extend that to at least 3 years. Because like I do understand that, but I also like I know it's a luxury and a privilege, like especially in Western culture and America, to have the time to get to know someone, and to really get to like know their personality and learn more about their character and their walk with God. I know back in the day, like arranged marriages and forced marriages. Oh, hold on, Bethany fixed her phone problem and she's gonna be joining us. So let me just admit her in. Hi, Bethany.
My name's just Beth.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's okay.
I'm sorry. My phone did not buzz. I was working on a project on my computer, and my phone was right next to me, and it never. I like looked at it. I'm like, why did it not tell me that this started?
It's totally fine. It's totally fine. We were just. I just asked the question. We just went through 4 of them, and this is the 5th one. It's
okay.
How long is too long to date or too short to date? And I was just talking about like how yes, like there is that pull towards physical intimacy the more you start to know someone, but you also like do need time to get to know someone in order to really like know in your heart that this is someone that I want to marry and spend like my life with. So I was kind of just reiterating that there is kind of this balance between like too short and too long, and really trying to find that like happy place where like you're not just rushing into things because hormones and stuff, but you're not kind of like dating for 7 years and then you start like living together, but like nothing's really going anywhere and it doesn't look serious. So yeah, that's kind of my take. And we're just gonna go in order here. So I just kind of said my piece. Then it's gonna go to Chelsea giving her response, and then Sammy, and then you, and then the next question. So yeah.
Okay. I feel like, wow,
a lot of factors that really can go into how long do you date before you get married. I really don't feel like there is a time limit versus, I'm not sure. Like, it depends. Like, how long have you known the person? Have you known the person since you were kids? Have you known the person since you were teenagers? Are you dating them in high school? Are you going to college afterwards? Like, there's so many things like that that can go into it. Were you friends first? Hopefully, like we talked about a little bit earlier. I know some people who are getting married at dating 6 months or have, and they're really happy. Like, you can, I think for me personally, I wouldn't date a not short of time because I'm a very complex type person and I want to do things with the person, know them in and out, and grow spiritually with them first and be very sure that's what I want to do. So I feel like it also really depends what types of people you both are, but I don't know. I feel like there's some people who just know they're really in love and you can just tell by looking at them, that they just really love each other and that's where they're gonna go in life. But yeah, I would say, like, I've been told by parents or by people you should date several years. It really, there's no time frame that's right for one person that everyone should stick to. No, you probably should not marry someone on the third date. They should not propose to you then. But, like, I don't know. It can be under a year. It can be over a year. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked what both you guys said. First of all, shout out to Chip. I haven't heard from him in a while. I hope he's doing well. Yeah, I tend to lean more towards, and I agree kind of with what Chelsea said. It just really depends on, your guys' relationship and the people and how long that you've known them beforehand. I feel like plays a big part into it. Like, if I've known you my whole life, I think that's different than if I just met you and we're already, like, kind of thinking about those things. But for me, ideally, like, this is just my personal preference, I think I would at least, upon meeting them, and I'm like a hopeless romantic too, so please factor this in, like, my brain. So I think my ideal would be, if I'm first meeting them, then at least a year of friendship before we're even talking about dating. If I already know them, that's different. If I already know them, I would say dating at least a year minimum. And this is where I'm at too, and this would have looked different if you would have asked me a year ago also. But dating for at least a year and engaged also for at least a year. Making sure that the engagement is, I think, fairly long is kind of important to me too. I kind of agree with Chelsea. Sometimes I think it's possible to just know that. That's been kind of evident in some relationships of my friends that I'm close with, and it's just like, if she asks us and asks her parents and asks her pastor and stuff, it's just kind of obvious that they're a good match. And I don't think it's necessary at that point to really wait all that long, because then there is physical temptations and things. And I'm not saying to rush into it because of physical temptation. That's not where my heart is at all. But I do think that if you already know someone fairly well, I would say my ideal is a year to get to know them with nothing romantic involved at all. Just getting to know them at least. And then a year dating, a year engaged. So I guess a 3-year long relationship pre-marriage is my ideal too, Summer. I guess yours was dating more, but 3 years ideally for the relationship pre-marriage is what I would say for me personally.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all of you guys. I know that it's not necessarily about the length of time. It's like, I think the quality of time is, I think, the most important when you're really considering, who you want to spend the rest of your life with. You have to really think about what is, important to both of you and how you will, because this is a huge deal, I know people that they were one of my family members, they were in a relationship for 14 years, and then they got married, and it didn't last another year. And then, my parents, they met, and they had actually known each other for a few years beforehand. My dad is actually my stepdad, but he's dad to me. So they met and they started dating and were engaged within 8 months, and they'll celebrate their 23rd wedding anniversary this year. So it really depends, on the people. It depends on why you're going into the marriage. I know that, like, for us, it was really out of necessity, to be honest. But that's a whole other story I won't go into. But yeah, I think for me, I don't think I could do something that short. And ideally, they say you want to marry your best friend. So it takes a while to get that friendship there. And so if you rush the friendship because of, the infatuation and, the physical attraction, you don't have anything like left to fall back on. So having that solid base of friendship first, that can take a while. And it could take, a year, it could take 2-3 years maybe. But I, probably wouldn't, after 2 years, if I'm still dating them, I'd probably have some questions. But, it's really dependent on the relationship for me. And it's dependent, on what you want to gain out of marriage. Because if you're trying to gain out of marriage, like, just pure, like, I lost my thought. But, like, if you're just trying to, like, gain physical things from that marriage, you're going to be left empty-handed. So you have to have that, solid foundation of what you both are passionate about, how God is an influence in your life, and all of these kinds of things. So I hope that answered that.
Those were all really good. And next, question number, I think this is question 6. Should a woman, or not should, I think it's can a girl pursue a guy? And I know this is a very hot button issue, especially in the Christian community, because, the Bible does say a lot about how a man's character should be. A man should be responsible, should provide, should take care of, like, his wife and his family, and should be sacrificial, and all that kind of stuff. And I think in the past, what the church has kind of misinterpreted of that is that the Bible talks so much about men and how men should act and how men should be in the world, that, like, men are in some ways, like, superior to a woman, and that, like, men are dominant and women should just be submissive and not have opinions and just be passive wallflowers in life. And I definitely think that has bred a lot of confusion and hurt for a lot of women in the church. And it also, like, increases, like, a lot of domestic violence and sexual assault as well, because some men think that, they can do whatever they want to women because, like, I'm a man and, like, I can do whatever I want. Like, this is just me being a man. Like, it's just, like, boys will be boys and stupid stuff like that. And of course, I'm not saying that, like, everything that men and women have been taught as children and been taught in the church, like, is, like, stupid and we need to throw it away, and, like, we need to get rid of the, like, the gender construct, like, and break free of that. I don't think that at all. I just think we really need to question kind of the stereotypes that have been taught to us and have been passed down from generations to really understand, like, both men and women. So so just to sum it up, in this question, do I think that a girl should pursue a guy? It really depends on what you mean by pursuing. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with a girl being like, hey, I'm interested in being in a relationship with you. Do you want to, like, get coffee sometime? I don't really think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think she's, like, emasculating the guy in any way. Because, again, it has a lot to do with, like, how the church has interpreted masculinity and femininity, and how, like, especially society has interpreted that. And when you kind of associate that, like, if you're a guy, like, you need to initiate, and you have to do this and that, and, like, if a girl asks you out, or, like, wants to, you know, split the bill or something, then she's, like, threatening you or something. I just think that's kind of ridiculous, and you just need to be honest, and if you are in a relationship, just, you know, communicate and be like, hey, this is how I feel, like, when you da-da-da-da-da-da, can we, like, talk about this? And just, like, take an honest look at the stereotypes that society expresses about men and women, and definitely have an honest conversation with the people of opposite gender in your life and your significant other if you do have one. So, sorry that was so long, but yeah, that's my take.
I would like to say I think Summer gave a great response, and her response could go in so many ways. It was really good though. I definitely think that, I don't know, in the relationships I've been in, I've never necessarily pursued them. They, like, all asked me, like, do you want to be my girlfriend? And I said, yes. But it's beyond just, do you want to be my boyfriend, girlfriend? Do you want, like, will you marry me? It's beyond that too. Like, there's a lot of things in the relationship, like Summer said also, like, paying the bill, communication, stuff like that. That's really important. And I also do think, like, in terms of pursuing things, like, it can be considered, I don't know, like, you often in the picture don't see women pursuing things, and I don't really know how to put a take on that. Like, if you're, like, I don't know, society says, like, oh, if you're a man, then yeah, you're gonna pursue it. But I think there's nothing wrong with being a girl. Oh, hey, you know, I think we've been friends for a while, or oh, hey, I just kind of met you, and I don't know, I think there might be something there. Do you want to go get coffee sometime or something? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I definitely agree, like, with feminism. Like, actually, like, earlier today I was doing a little study, and I was watching my favorite YouTube channel, Coffee and Bible Time, and it was about the Proverbs 31 woman, because it's important we have standards for the men that we consider dating or that we date, and it's also important that they have standards for us too. And back in the day, you know, I guess it was, women were really, really looked down upon because of how Eve was the one who sinned first, and they considered women to be evil because Eve brought sin into the world when Satan tempted her. And we've grown a long way from that, how women used to be treated and how men are supposed to be, you know, dominant and stuff like that. I think in society, you know, we're in a healthy place where, for the most part, men and women are completely on equals, which is really, really great. And also, it has caused hurt in the church. Like, you look at some Bible verses, wives submit to your husbands, and women who are also feminists in the church, or more so in progressive Christianity, could be like, oh, well, I don't have to submit to a man. Well, I mean, no, you shouldn't, let a man decide everything for you or rule your life, because the ruler of your life should be Jesus. But, it doesn't mean bow down to your husband because he's right all the time. It's just women and men have these different things about them, and when you put those two things together, it's like a puzzle piece and you click. But in regards to the question, I don't think it's wrong for a woman to pursue.
Yeah, you guys both said really great things about that. I don't have a problem at all with a woman pursuing a man. I think, initiating might be a little bit different. And as far as initiation goes, I say go for it, shoot your shot, If you have interest, then you have interest. Like, hey, I think you're cute. Hey, I think that, we could be a good match. Or do you want to go do this? Or do you want to, whatever, go do that. That's fine. I do have a little something against chasing, though. I think, like, if we're going to pursue, we should also be being pursued back. Like, the level of energy and the level of, effort being put into that should match, should be pretty equal. Also, kind of what you were saying, Chelsea, about wives submitting to their husbands. After that, it goes on to say, like, and husbands, you need to love your wives as yourself. Like, you need to, I think the section about, women submit to your husbands is even a little bit shorter than what he writes after. And he's like, and husbands, you need to do this and this and this and this. And, it goes kind of circles back to what we were saying about respect earlier, which is a different story. But as far as pursuit goes, I don't think it's an issue. I think if someone's, if a guy's getting offended and it's, threatening his masculinity to pick up a bill or something like that, then that's kind of a red flag to some other things. If he's really that worried about kind of his masculinity as a social construct being tarnished or being hurt, that's a little bit of a different story. I feel like that's more of like gender norm, gender stereotype things that kind of enforce, not super biblical. But I do agree with what both of you guys were saying, and I think, as long as they're also, pursue a guy, but he should also be pursuing you. Like, you shouldn't be the only one. It should be, received on both ends. So.
Yeah, definitely. It's got to be a two-way street. And, you all said it so good. I really am regretful that I came in this late, because now I'm like, wow, everything I would have to say, you guys already said it.
You're good. You're good.
But I'm kind of, in that same belief. I know I kind of tend to have more traditional values as far as, what the roles might be in a relationship. But I think that it's appropriate, absolutely, for a woman to pursue the man, but I still feel like, there's a good part of me that still believes it's the man's job to maintain it if he chooses. It can't be all up to us. It can't be all up to the pursuer. The pursuee has to have a role too. The one being pursued, I guess. And, it's good that you guys mentioned, the section from Ephesians, which is so grossly misquoted, because it seems, to make the Bible, anti-feminist, when that's really the farthest thing from the case. With all these things, in the New Testament, a lot of things that were said there were quite countercultural to the times, because, women were not seen as equals to men. But here in the New Testament, they're saying, your roles may be different, but they are equally as important in doing God's work. So I think that men and women might have different roles, but to say that, the man is superior to the woman and just has the right to do whatever he wants simply because he is a man, I think that that's incredibly outdated, and I think that that's not biblically correct. It doesn't support things like you were saying, Summer, about how the man feels like he has the rights over his wife, And, there's a part in Corinthians where it says, the man does not or the woman does not have rights to her own body, but it's to her husband's. But it also says the man doesn't have rights to his own body, but his wife does. So it's like, you have to kind of really look into the context of those things. But when you're looking at it like whole picture, we're different, but we're not unequal. So I guess, to tie it all up in a pretty bow, I would just kind of say I think it's completely fine, for a woman to pursue the man. But I still feel like there's a big part that says, God gave men a not leadership role, but something along those lines, but a leadership in a way that is not about, having like one above the other. It's a leadership of I'm walking alongside you. So I think that men should maintain the relationship, but they don't necessarily have to initiate.
Oh gosh, this is really good. Oh my gosh. Oh, but I still feel really awkward.
Oh no, dude, you have no clue.
Okay, question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Question 7, why does it matter who we date? Well, it matters who we date because dating in Christianity is usually a precursor towards marriage. And even though, again, Chip and I always get in these arguments, even though, yes, dating is a Western construct and there wasn't any dating mentioned in the Bible because, like, again, most marriages, were kind of arranged, and it was like, like, I need cattle, you have a wife, so let's make an arrangement and make it work, and stuff like that. But obviously we don't trade, human beings for cattle anymore, or at least we shouldn't, because it's not okay. But yeah, it matters who you date because, like, dating and courting, I know, like, some people think, like, it's different and there's not a lot of clarity on that, especially, like, when you're discussing with the older generation, which is even more of a hot button issue. But I kind of think that dating and courting are just the same thing. Spending serious time with someone and getting to know them, not just on the surface, but really knowing like their character and their walk with God and their family, especially their family, because they might be your in-laws and you don't want to have, like, you don't want to be that one person who keeps complaining about the in-laws. Like, when you're dating, you should know that beforehand. So yeah, it's a precursor towards marriage, and you want to spend serious time with someone before you just, like, let's go down the aisle now. And yeah, that's why I think it matters who you date. And yeah.
Okay, I think that since we're on question 7 and we've already talked about so many things with Christian dating, a lot of this loops back to things we talked about before, but Summer has a great point starting out about the in-laws because, you have to think about later in your life, it's very unfortunate. Like, someday your parents are going to be old and they're going to need you to take care of them before they pass away, and same goes for your significant other. And if your parents pass away first or theirs, then you also would love for their parents to be like your second set of parents. And obviously, if God sets someone apart for you, because God's the author of our story, and if they don't have great parents or they don't have a great family history, that's not going to, per se, really hurt your relationship in the sense of, oh, I don't like your family, so I'm not going to marry you. Like, no. It's definitely a big bonus, and something that you do want to watch for, like, what's their family like. But I would say, in terms of question earlier asked, what's the difference between Christian dating and, the rest of the world? What should it look like? The world has a lot of normality to fun flings and hookups and stuff like that, that just are not as, just not what we would want, and you want someone who desires God, like we already talked about too, and it's just so important to pick out the right person that you believe God has for you, and especially just, oh my word, pray about it, because God will lead you to that right person. And honestly, like, this is not necessarily in regards to relationships, I mean, that too, but I have prayed, God, if there's people in my life that you don't want me to have in my life, or like, hey, I've kind of questioned some things about this person, so-and-so that's in my life. If they're not meant to be there, please take them out. And I can't be mad because I literally asked for it. But God does take the people out of your life that shouldn't be there. And, you'd be surprised, like, the people you hang out with. I definitely have not been in a great place before because of, again, not necessarily in regards to relationships, but I feel like it's definitely 100 times worse if it is a relationship. Who you hang out with, who you spend all your time with, that's not going to necessarily take you away from your core values like your faith, but it really changes you as a person who you spend your time with. So if your significant other kind of believes in God, but they're not completely a Christian, and you love them and things go really far, or they get you to do stuff with them, it's really going to bring you down. Or if they are really strong in their faith, they can really bring you up, and it just can either be really great or really bad. Yeah, I think that's all I have on the subject matter.
I really like how you guys started everything out. Yeah, the farther and farther we go, I'd say it's harder to. Oh, sorry, my background is probably a little bit loud. The farther we go in questions, the more we're able to circle back, which I think is great. But like Summer was kind of saying, it definitely is going to go back to, like, you're looking for marriage, right? In Christian dating, that's what the goal is, date to find a mate. We've all heard in sermons, and, a lot of us, our whole lives, date to find a mate, all that good stuff. But I do agree with what you're saying, Chelsea, about how God ultimately is the author and he's writing our story. And I read a book called When God Writes Your Love Story, and handing over the pen to God for him to write your love story and what that looks like. And that was really helpful to me. One thing I kind of learned through a couple different good books and authors was the idea to kind of like have the mindset that God, for whatever amount of time or whatever, season you're in, he's, what's the word I'm looking for? He's refining you, and he is growing you, and he's teaching you to be a wife. That's kind of like the mindset that I've been in right now, at least. Like, I can't be ready for a relationship until I am a wife. I don't have the qualities of a wife yet, and I'm learning, and I'm growing, and I'm reading, and I'm, pursuing the Lord. And he is, in turn, refining me and teaching me. And the kind of idea that he, at some point, when I'm ready, when he thinks I'm ready, and this is the analogy that I've heard. I'm sorry, like losing track of my thoughts. This is the analogy I've heard. When you're ready to ride a bike, God will be like, okay, like, you know how to ride a bike. You're ready to ride a bike. And you're like, but God, which bike do I choose? The red bike or the blue bike? And God's like, well, I guess what I'm trying to say, all that to say, I don't think it totally matters whether you choose the red bike or the blue bike, but more your intentions and your decision making. Like, why are you choosing this person? What are your what's going into this thought process? Why are you choosing them? Why are you wanting a relationship? Why are you wanting to get married? Like, where's your head at in that? More than, is this the right person or is this the right person? It's like, it all goes back to why you're making those decisions. I felt like I rambled there for a second, but I got to where I wanted to go, so that's all I have to say.
So yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because this whole time, it was the it's important, who you choose. But I read a book a while ago, and my friend has it now. But the book is called The Sacred Search. What if it's not about who you marry, but why? And Sam, by your face, I'm gonna guess that's probably what you were talking about.
I'm reading that right now.
Oh my gosh, it is so good. It is so good. And yeah, it's, I'll preface it by saying I've never been in a relationship. But it's okay right now. Like for me, I think once I got to the age where I am now, I kind of am at that point where I'm like, I don't really feel like it's necessary to date for fun. I'm dating, to find my husband. And it's all about, your intention, your reason. And if you have, the reason of, I want to be in a relationship because I'm lonely, or because I want this, and this from another person. If you have that as your base, it's going to crumble out from underneath you once it's run its course. And you're like, wow, I kind of hate this person now. But if you have the foundation of, I want to be in a relationship to further God's mission for me, if I want, to be in a relationship to make each other better, then that's going to be a much sturdier foundation for you to continue on in the relationship. Because, that honeymoon period does not last forever. And I don't know. I think that, it matters who you choose, because if you choose just for the sake of, choosing that person, you're gonna, the infatuation is gonna run its course much quicker than it would if you are choosing the person because their values are aligned with yours, and they, believe in Jesus, and they believe in, in the same mission that you have of wanting to walk by, not your soulmate, S-O-U-L, but your soulmate, S-O-L-E. Yeah. And he says that in the book. So, totally stealing that from Gary Thomas. But it's so good. So good. But yeah, it's going to be much more rewarding if you lead, into that with the intention of, I want to get closer to God with you.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of back to what you said, Beth, I don't know if any of you have heard of this pastor. His name's Vlad Savchuk of Hungry Generation. But I was listening to this sermon of his the other day. I'm on like this dating sermon binge right now. It wasn't just because of this video, but I've just been on that for a while. And basically at the end of it, he said this thing that was really like, oh, like, whoa, like impactful for me. And I think what he said was, if you're not ready for marriage, then you're not ready for dating. Because when you're dating and you're not ready for marriage, then you're just dating for fun. And if you want to have fun, then like get a hobby or get a pet, because you don't use someone else's heart for fun. And I just like, I don't think any of you have heard of him, but I just was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. Like, I already knew that ahead of time, but just like, that was so powerful, just the way he said that. So, yeah, anyway, I'm gonna stop fangirling now. And question 1 through 4, 5. Question 8. How do you know if the person you're dating is marriage material? And gosh, like, I mean, does
I
anyone
feel wildly unqualified to answer that.
Yeah, I think we're like all unqualified to answer that, but like honestly, does anyone really know? Like I don't really think they do because like we kind of touched on earlier, like you can only know someone for like 3 months and just like immediately jump into marriage, and you end up being married for like 10, 20, 30 years, and you have like this amazing marriage. But you could also know someone for like your whole life and then get married to them, and all of a sudden like infidelity starts, and it could just really blindside you. um so it's just really tricky because I think it's just a lot to do with like prayer, obviously, and reading the word and using wisdom and discernment before you really know, like, and you really feel at peace in your spirit that we are going to be married and it's going to be for life. Like, this is the person I want to spend my life with. And like, marriage is a big deal. It shouldn't be just casually like, oh, like I just like the color scheme and getting the tablecloths and stuff and like the gown, and like, no, dude, it's like a whole flippin' thing. Marriage is not one day, it's a whole commitment. It's a covenant. Like, yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now before I go on a rant, but that's what I just have to say.
Okay, yes, I agree with Summer that since none of us are married women, it's kind of hard for us to answer this, but, something that, Samantha said a while ago, that she is not wife material yet. She does not have all the characteristics of a wife. Even when you're in a relationship, hello, I'm not the perfect person. There's definitely still a lot of things I would love to improve on with my walk with God. I think it's really important we grow our relationship each and every day, trying to just get the fruits of the Spirit and become just more like Jesus. But I think also a lot of controversy with Christians too. When should you date? I don't know if that's a question that we'll have to answer later, but when should a Christian date? Like, I know one of the churches I went to previously, oh, if you're a teenager, why are you dating someone? Like, you're too young to date. Like, it really depends, because if you're dating someone when you're in school, I mean, obviously, since I'm in a relationship, and I think we've all mostly been in relationships, like, you can be in relationships in school. There's no problem with that, honestly. Just no physical boundaries and don't, be careful. But, I blanked. I apologize. But, yes, none of us in school right now are wife material. And if you have a boyfriend, or, like, if you had a boyfriend, no, they're probably not husband material. You continue to grow, and you can continue to grow with the Lord every day until you lead up to that point. But I'm going to stand by the truth that I've said before. Like, the examples of love are all in this book, and God has so many examples of love, and we really need to fall in love with God first and let Him show us what true love is beforehand, so that we know what love looks like, so that we know what we're getting ourselves into, if it's really love, if we're getting blinded by our feelings just because we're attracted to that person and we like the idea of getting married, like Summer said. Like, love goes beyond just, oh, I'm gonna buy a pretty wedding dress, I'm so excited, I'm the first one on my friend group to get married. You can also feel really left behind if you're single and all your friends are in relationships, or if some of your friends are starting to get married, which I actually have a couple, which honestly scares me since they're only a couple years older than me. Like, it's really scary stuff to think about, because this is the person you're literally talking about spending your entire life with. And I think, again, I'll also touch on this. I mentioned this before, but definitely make sure your life goals align. Like, do you have the same hobbies? Do you guys both like to travel? If you like to travel and you want to travel all over the world someday, and they have a fear of traveling or don't want to, isn't that kind of gonna deteriorate the quality of your life? Is that something you can live with? Sacrificing that for them? Like, there's just a lot of things to go into it. But yeah, by far, praying about it and just bettering yourself to be more like Jesus every day, and just being aware of these things.
Yeah, good job with that. The girls pretty much did a great job of just starting with the fact that I'm also not qualified probably to speak on this, but I'm going to give it my best shot since I was asked to answer these questions. Summer, I loved when you got into it with the claps about how serious marriage is, because I'm with you. Like, if I'm going to make a vow in front of my people and in front of God, like, I'm going to stand before my family and friends and before the Lord and make a covenant to you. It's got to be pretty, like, I got to know. It's going to be pretty serious. I'm going to go ahead and steal one of the concepts Gary Thomas talked about before Beth can. Sorry, Beth. But one thing that he really talks about that I thought was valuable, so hopefully you guys can find value in this too, was that your friends and family are a super great resource to be able to tell whether or not you and this person are a good match. They know you better than you probably know yourself, and they're able to take out some of the bias that you might have. You might be willing to defend and ignore some qualities that aren't great in your significant other, and they might be seeing these things and out of love for you and respect for your relationship, not really talking about it. So if you take that step and you're like, hey, let's sit down and talk about whether or not you think that this is a good fit for me to, actually marry this person. The same with your parents and family. I know for some it might be hard. I had a bit of a rebellious streak with my parents a couple years ago. So if I would have been asked to, talk about this a couple years ago, I would never suggest going to your parents and asking what they think, because they did not approve of my relationship. But yeah, I do think that that's super valuable, and I really liked how Gary Thomas kind of summed that up, that friends and family are a great resource. So that would be my word of advice, I guess, from an unmarried single woman who's only dated one person ever.
All right, and I'm coming in as the unmarried single woman who has never had a person, never had that. But yeah, I kind of was thinking the same thing. Like, I think that, yeah, you really have to know, like, the person well, because this is, like, it's some serious stuff, man. Like, this isn't, the wedding lasts for a couple hours, but the marriage lasts for, if everything goes right, your whole life, and so you want it to go right, so you got to have God as the base of that. It kind of goes back to what we're saying about, like, why it matters who you marry, and why it matters, why you're marrying a person. So, yeah, I think having an unbiased source, they can kind of pick things, like maybe see little mannerisms that you may not even be aware of, because they can just kind of see, as an objective outside source, like, that doesn't have, the rose, or I thought someone was knocking, that, someone, like, you don't have, like, the rose-colored glasses and seeing only the good things about this person, because that's going to go away. That's not going to stay forever. And so, I think a good example for me is, like, friends that I brought home, when I was in high school. I had some really questionable friends. And, my mom would be super nice to them and everything, and she'd still be like, yeah, I really like them and stuff. But like once the door closed, it'd be like, so this, and this. It just, the thing that kept going in my head is, my mama don't like you and she likes everyone. You gotta be really like particular about like if they find something that you're not going to be able to get past, you might want to really listen to that and really strongly evaluate, if you can look past that, because we're all human and we're all fallible. But yeah, having the objective outside source is going to be like key, I think. So that's how I think it's a good way to know that you're marrying the right person from a perpetually single woman.
Thank you again so much for watching, you guys. Be sure to, if you want to, hit that red subscribe button down below, and also be sure to tune in to my latest episode of So coming tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, featuring Denise Schick. Part 3 is going to be midnight on Galentine's Day, February 13th, and can't wait to see you guys. Thank you!